Yes, I did a thing. That's all I'm going to show you about this. Tomorrow's video will tell you more. But yes, I did something. With my genius. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Yes, it is Sunday night and it is time for another live stream. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the absence of DJI products on the US store, and things are actually getting a little bit desperate because it isn't just in the DJI store, it's also in retailers as well, and we're going to just talk about that a little bit. We're going to talk about Caddx. God help us in this. Let's see where this ends up. However, I just want to touch a little bit on a bit of discontent that seems to be growing among social media, Discord groups and others. I was actually reading this morning, and I know JB mentioned this in his stream, and it was already in my head to talk about today. I'm not stealing JB's ideas. I did, though, steal the idea about talking about the DJI stuff because I forgot it was getting more difficult. However, we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about fake product leaks in FPV, because this week we had something which did look potentially interesting and it caught a lot of people in the trap. However, the reality is it was completely fake, and I'm going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about the impact of AI in FPV, because there are products coming out now with more and more AI involved, and I want to talk about what impact they have. And no, I'm not talking about it creating photos for you or solving your problems. My cup of tea has arrived. One moment. Thank you very much. We're talking about how AI can enhance the FPV experience, and today it seems to be relegated to low light performance cameras again from Caddx. I have ordered them myself, and mine still haven't arrived. But it is going to be an interesting subject to cover. And then we're going to talk about a few other things as we get along, because I can't remember everything that I put in the doc. If I was any form of proper YouTuber, I would actually write down what I meant to be talking about. But what I don't do is script anything. The way this works is over the week, I sit there and think about things, put a few things in my notes. One of them was obviously the Caddx thing. I forgot to put DJI in my notes, but nothing's ever scripted. It's always, let's go for it and let's see how it goes. It was great to see JB live earlier. I did pop on and cause a little bit of trouble. I made a comment which he didn't say publicly, but I did make him laugh, which was fun. But it was nice to see the master back. You do forget just how good JB is at this. I'll be honest, JB is still the gold standard of FPV YouTube, and he does really make it look effortless. His cameras look quite nice now as well, with those nice expensive Sonys that he's bought, but we don't like Sonys, so we don't want to talk about them. But yeah, it was nice to see JB back. It's always good to have the people around, you know, even myself. I actually have 2 videos this week. I've made you 2 videos, ladies and gentlemen, this week. I have been down a little bit. We are behind a little bit, but there are a couple of videos in the pipeline. I think there's 2 good ones this week. There really is 2 good ones this week. And then there's some good stuff coming. Can't tell you any more than that. All I can say is there's some good stuff coming. Overall, it's still a quiet week, and there is a little bit of stuff going on in the US this week, which we'll come on to now as part of the DJI stuff, because obviously there's been talk around that. There's also some interesting stuff bubbling along with Red Cat. Again, people complaining. Last week, I upset a few people when I got into the political talk a little bit, so I'm going to avoid that. What I am just going to say is, did everyone else see the breakup? Wow. Ignoring politics. I don't want to get into politics, but wow. I think we all knew that was going to come. But wow. Yeah, I'm not sure. Interesting. Do we? And I've got some interesting thoughts on Elon, and I think it could be a tough few years for Elon. I think the gloss is gone, and I think everyone has seen, not necessarily him, but things for what they are. But yeah, interesting times. But wow, what a 24 hours that was. Incredible. Incredible. So, whilst we're talking about the US, this will really nicely slide us into DJI, because people have been complaining for the last week and a half that it's getting very hard to buy DJI products. Now, there is something we should caveat this with. The new Mavic 4 was the first product from DJI not to launch in the US. It launched everywhere else, but it didn't launch in the US. DJI did make some comments to news outlets about that, but they've never actually released a statement. But what they haven't said is they're pulling out of the US, they're not going to ship to the US or anything like that. What has been clear, though, and if we go to the desktop, is certain products have been actually vanishing off the DJI store. Not everything, but things such as the Goggles 3, no longer available in your region. They're just not there. The N3 they are showing in stock, but that could be localized stock. What's interesting is when you look at 04, 04 is in stock for the standard air unit, or 229 out of stock for the Pro. And there are a range of products that are just not available in the US anymore from DJI. And obviously this is setting a lot of speculation, but it isn't just that you can't buy them here. There are many retailers where you can't buy these in stock either. They have run out pretty much everywhere. If we go to Get FPV, I don't know if they've got stock. It looks like they have run out as well. Out of stock. They're showing, but they're out of stock. If we go to Newbie Drone, which I can never spell, let's go. Sold out, not available too. Now, there is obviously a huge amount of speculation on, is DJI pulling out the US? What is going on? Right, we don't have any concrete info on this at the moment. But what DJI haven't said is they are no longer going to ship products to the US. What I suspect we have here is the same situation that was happening with computer components, may still happen with computer components and other stuff, and that is that local supply has run out. No one is willing to import until the tariff situation is sorted out, because you are not shipping products in like this on plane. So, for instance, if you buy today, it won't be delivered on Friday. Most of this stuff is shipped on containers in boats, which is 2 to 3 months on average, 6 weeks roughly, maybe sometimes. But the issue is, people will not order not knowing what it's going to cost when it arrives, because remember, the tariff you pay is at the point of it coming in, and you're going to be unknowing what that product is going to cost you. DJI wouldn't even know what it's going to cost them. So the reality is, DJI has lightly just gone, we're not going to bring it in, we're going to wait. And that is, in all likelihood, what is driving the lack of supply, is the term I'll use. There are people saying, could there be new DJI goggles around the corner? Obviously, there are leaks about an Avata 3. Those leaks are out there. We have talked about that already. If I go on to X, There are what appears to be fairly solid leaks for it, but there is nothing to suggest Goggles 3 are coming. Sorry, Goggles 4. There are leaks that have shown this here, which is bigger than the Neo. Sorry, I'm not showing it to you. It would help if I'm showing it to you. This, which is bigger than the Neo and looks a lot more like the Avata. I'm still not convinced DJI won't bring out an Avata 2 Pro. DJI does love its Pro name. Never underestimate DJI to make a Pro product. They've dropped the old black stuff like we used to get. I suspect there might be an Avata 3 or an Avata 3 Pro with the Avata 2 even staying. Someone just said, Goggles 3 not available here. Word on the street is flagships won't be available here. I don't believe that will be the case. Look, don't mix up flagships with expensive products. What it's really hard for DJI to do right now is figure out pricing on expensive products when they don't know what it's going to cost when it comes in. In essence, it's flagships because they're the expensive products. DJI will not want to sell into the US market, but they are also not stupid. If you think about this, 143% tariff, whatever it was, is over double the cost of a product. A set of Goggles 3 that were $499 before become $1,200. No one's going to pay that. So there is no point them bringing it in if it's at a price that no one's going to pay for. What we need to do is let all of this settle down, is what needs to happen. And that is likely where the issues are. Chances are you will possibly see stock land at retailers before it coming back in the US for DJI. You're just going to have to let things settle. This, though, doesn't just affect DJI. I have friends in the IT industry. I don't think people quite comprehend how close it came to laptops running out, IT hardware not being available. It is a complicated situation, and the reality is when you are bringing things in through shipping, your problem is you are not going to commit to an order when you don't know what that landing cost is, because you could commit to a £1 million product order that is going to cost you 2.4 million when it gets through the docks, and that isn't something businesses can do, because that is the problem. It's not about what the tariff is, as I said last week. It's more about the unknowing. Not knowing what the landed cost is when you place the order. It's different for consumers. You and me, we can order from AliExpress, and they will send it, and you know and I know we'll pay the difference and whatever it comes. But when you're dealing with a business, that's the problem. It is worth me noting that the Goggles 3 are available in European countries. There is no shortage in Europe. If I go back to the desktop, if I change the store to United Kingdom, Goggles 3 are fully available, in stock, ready to be shipped. There is no shortage in Europe either. There is no issues at all. Again, this is a US specific issue, and that makes me think that it probably will come back pretty soon. So that's where we're at. Some people have said, what about the Anzu? Anzu is DJI, right? Let's not kid ourselves here. Anzu Robotics is licensed DJI product. Made in Malaysia, licensed. 04E unit does seem to be low on stock at DJI. DJI just big mad at US. No, they're not. It's not about being mad. It's about cost. If your product, if you don't know what the product is going to cost when it lands, you can't import. People have to understand how retail and distribution works. You order 1,000, if DJI retailers order 10 sets of goggles at a cost, they have to pay that cost the second they ship to DJI. They're then going to be in transport, and if they don't know what it costs when it lands, how can they know if they really can afford to order them? That is the problem. It's about not knowing the final landed cost. Take Get FPV. They order 10 sets of goggles, and let's just say they pay, I don't know, let's say their margin is $100, so they pay $400 for the goggles instead of $499. Right? Nice and simple. $4,000. Those goggles land with 143% tariff. Those goggles then cost over £1,000 each, and they owe that much money. It's just not going to happen. They don't know in advance because the tariffs keep changing. People don't know because the tariffs have been changing, and that is the problem. You know what the tariff is right now until someone waves a wand and it changes, and that is the problem. Tariff is paid before it leaves China by the importer. Yes and no. It doesn't have to be. It's not paid until it lands at the port. You're talking about stuff shipped via normal carrier, not by a boat that can take 6 to 10 weeks. And it depends on the importer. Someone just asked, what do I think about the DJI vacuum robot leaks? Yeah, we've known about this for about a year. I knew about this ages ago. There were leaks about this. Oh, it seems like forever. Not at all shocked. Makes complete sense. The DJI Romeo is called. Romo. It seems to have been taking forever to come out. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think look, if you look at DJI and what they've been moving into, power stations, microphones, I'll tell you this, right? I bought this week these. This is the DJI Mic 2 kit because they're on a bit of a deal at the moment. These are freaking phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. And here's something, who would have thought there is a DJI product that does not require activation and doesn't have an app. To update the firmware on this, you drag a file onto the internal storage. DJI, you can do this. Who would have thought? Phenomenal product. And I mean phenomenal product. Been using it for a week and love them. Absolutely love them. DJI moving into robot vacuums. Obviously, you've got Amflow, which they're heavily tied to. Yeah, DJI is turning more and more into a consumer product company. I'm shocked they haven't moved into the VR space. I've said this a few times. I am still astonished that they haven't moved into the VR goggle space. Ignoring what they've done today, and you know, they have some experience in goggles. I'm not saying it's not easy, but they really could move into that space. There's lots of segments you could see DJI moving into. They don't have the lens quality. Don't base what they're doing in FPV on what they could do in VR. It's not the same thing. A set of FPV goggles is built to an incredibly low budget. Remember, for $499, you have all that RF hardware, all of that side of it. DJI could easily, if you're talking a $600, $700, $800 high-end VR product, they could easily deliver. It's not about them not having the optics. They're choosing the optics they're giving us. DJI have a lot of experience, though, on building goggles. You know, to be honest, like none of the VR goggles I've used have decent optics, I'll be honest. I haven't tried the latest MetaQuests. Yeah, that's funny enough. Junus has made a real good point. VR requires supporting third-party devs, and DJI is not exactly great at that. I think that's the understatement of the year. Not tried the optics on the Quest 3. Quest 2 is complete junk. DJI could definitely get into that market. There are lots of markets. The vacuum, I think, it's a no-brainer. But look, honestly, these are so good. You know, I remember DJI isn't a drone company. The Ronin arm for DJI is enormous. The amount of places the Ronin and the camera gear is being used. More and more pro films, high-end films are using their gear. It is DJI Mic 2. Phenomenal bit of kit. Doesn't have an app, and you can update the firmware via just dragging the files onto the internal storage. Who'd have thought? Doesn't even need activation. A DJI product without activation. Yeah, but although Goggles 3 outside cameras tell me they're a million miles. No, that was done at cost. Those cameras were done at cost. Never underestimate what DJI is capable of doing based on what they can do at the high end. Remember, they mess around with FPV. They barely care. What they're doing today isn't even trying, to be fair. So, look. Products are short, likely tariff related. There is no hints of new goggles. Do I think, before we move on, they could make a refresh of the Goggles 3? Someone said the cameras are junk. They are. Look, what I could absolutely see a Goggles 3 refresh without the front cameras, because they're just terrible. I think DJI had gone down the design route and went, yeah, these are no good. And then just carried on because they'd done it. I was actually expecting a Goggle 3 Lite without the cameras in, if I'm honest. Someone thought it was a good idea. DJI have done this stuff in the past. They do this, they put something in, not great, and then take it out again, then come back with it a few years later. It's also worth remembering DJI is the king of giving and taking away and bringing it back later. Goggles 3 version 2, Goggles 3 Lite, Goggles 3 version 2. I wouldn't be shocked. If we see an Avata 3, I could see a Goggles 2 version 2. I could see that happening. With, you know, without the cameras, but they give you something else. I don't know what. But to be crystal clear, Goggles Integra 2, yeah, that's a good point, Junus. That's a really good point. I don't believe there is any hint of new goggles. There's nothing. New ear unit using the Action 5 sensor. I think it's unlikely. I think you don't need an ear unit for that. You just need a camera. It's only the camera. They don't need to change the 04 or 04 Pro ear unit. When you look at the leaks on this does look to have a very big camera. And I think this will have vertical shooting. DJI seems to be really into vertical shooting right now. I wouldn't be shocked if it was called an Avata 2 Pro, but it looks a bit too different to me. Different props. I wouldn't be shocked if you got an Avata 2 Pro with a fully vertical up and down camera. that can go all the way up, all the way down. But that looks massive. That looks a lot bigger than we have already. Really, really does look very, very big. No, the Neo is a different quad. There are leaks for the Neo separately. So if we go to Igor, there's a few websites that have leaked. The Matrice 400 is around the corner as well. Jesus, look at this thing. Look at this thing. But there were separate leaks for... let me just find it. DJI Neo 2. I knew the Neo 2 was going to happen this year. That was already known to me. I've been saying it on and off for months. I got told it somewhere that it was definitely happening. Let me find it. It'll be Jasper will have the pictures. I knew that was happening. Osmo Action 360 looks to be around the corner, finally. DJI Romeo, look. There's the boxes for the Romeo, so it is coming. We've even got app leaks and stuff for it, which is cool. Yeah, look, it's... There you go. This looks to be the new Neo. Which weird, because it looks like it's got microphones all strapped on the top of it. It's got the cages. This looks to be the new Neo. What is actually incredibly interesting is if this new camera comes. Osmo 360, there's been talk of it forever. There has been talk of it forever, but there is talk of a newer, smaller replacement action camera, a lot more like the DJI Action 2. If DJI do bring a Action 2 style replacement that actually delivers, a lot of people will be very, very happy. If you imagine we had the Action 2 size, but with the better sensor, Action 2 with Action 4 quality. That's all we're asking for. The Action 5, Action 2 with Action 4 quality. Ramali, is USC not allowed any DJI products? No, that is not correct. There is no ban on DJI in the USA at this time. It is possible. There is all sorts of stuff rumbling through from the President of the United States. There's still all of this stuff rumbling around in the background. There's been talk of DJI being banned for years. I actually think it will happen eventually, one way or another. The order was to do the inquiry. Yeah, look, it's been rolling on and on forever. But let's just wait and see. That's, we're just going to have to wait and see. So, look, that's the DJI news. That's where we're at. Love there to be a new, smaller camera. That would be very interesting. We'll have to see what happens with the avatars and stuff like this. These are months off, by the way. None of these are new. I don't think we need better quality than the 04 Pro for FPV. Yeah, you're just going to you got to take into account 04 remains to be, as all recording FPV cameras is compromised. You are compromised by frame rate being locked to the latency. And that remains an unfixable problem. Until that problem is fixed, there will always be a need for some people to run separate cameras, because you cannot have 30 frames a second and low latency. It is simply not possible in DJI's current system. They could absolutely get the latency down. You can record at 120 recording 120 isn't the lowest latency. Recording at 100 is. Yeah, recording one AU twin camera is the only solution. Yeah. You can't on the same camera. And then you may as well have a separate action camera. There is absolutely a need for a separate action camera for many, many people. It still makes a lot of sense for many people. Recording at 100 or 120 and then everything is in that frame rate. There are people who don't want the footage in 100 or 120. You can change it to 30 frames a second, but you have to remember your shutter is running at 100 frames a second. You can't change the laws of physics. The shutter is still doing 100 or whatever. So even if you set it to twice, so you have 1/200th of a shutter, okay? It's still, if you follow the usual rule, it's still not going to be right. And redundant video is Dave SC. So look, GoPro have continued to completely let everyone down and deliver products that no one wants. Whilst the Action 5 was a mild upgrade over the Action 4, it was still an upgrade. The Hero 13 was a complete and utter joke. It was literally the same camera in a new housing. What GoPro actually did was go, hey, here's a new camera that is the same as the old one, but now none of your accessories fit, so now you're going to have to go and buy everything again and give us more money. And the benefit to you was that. Nothing. The new GoPro was nothing more than a money grab to get you to buy all the accessories again. It is literally the same camera as the 12. Well, some ND filters, yeah. But the rest of it, fucking batteries didn't fit, nothing else fit. So it was absolute money grab. At least the Action 5 has a new chipset. And interestingly, it seems to have settled down. I haven't really seen many comments on the Action 5. Initially, it had a few issues, but everything seems to have settled down. Is anyone here using an Action 5 for FPV? I'm actually interested, because there was lots of noise initially, but it all seems to have gone quiet. There are also some good deals on the Action 4 right now, I will add. If you go on the DJI website, they do have some sales on their Action stuff, and the Action 4 is on sale. Some good deals on the Action 4 right now. It's down to 229 quid in the standard combo. That is a good price. Was 289, 229. I am seriously tempted at ordering one of them. I got this on offer. And I'm tempted. That is a great deal for the Action 4. Still picked up a GoPro 11 Mini for 170. Yeah, not bad. Let's go to... What's the Action 5 coming in at? They never released an Action 5 standard, did they? 329. What are we talking on GoPro UK? Let's have a look. Yeah, look, GoPro does have labs, obviously. So, cameras. What have we got on GoPro? If we go to Hero 12 Black, so this is the equivalent, 299. See, look at that. You're still paying a lot more for the Hero 12, let alone the 13, the 12. The 12 Black is 299. Have you got insurance on it, FPV Starburton? Have you got... That is... See, that is a chunk of money more. A chunk of money more. Obviously, you then also have, come on, the Hero. So what's the price of the Hero now? $199. I guess the Hero is not bad. How are people flying the Hero? Is anyone flying the Hero as a daily FPV cam? I wish more companies made naked action 4.5s. Still using a Hero 5 Black myself. I'm intrigued if anyone's flying with the Hero. Because I think the DJI is a better deal. Hero shite. Sent it back, got the Action 4. There we go. There's the answer. GoPro has just priced itself out of the market. That's the problem. Well, you can say that, and DJI's being aggressive. I think the DJI at that price is a phenomenal camera. It breaks. I think the Action 4 is a phenomenal camera for that money. It really is. Definitely worth a look. And let's be honest, DJI's ecosystem has got so good now because you can pair the DJI Mic 2s directly to the camera. For those who haven't seen these, this is phenomenal. This kit is absolutely phenomenal. I've been using it this week. Just amazing. For the cost I got this, DJI is smashing it out the park. Honestly. 32-bit float recording is incredible. It really is. So, look, that's DJI. We've been on them for too long. That's where we're at. We'll have to wait and see. Now, it does record locally on the device, Dwayne. And you don't even need to use the receiver. You can just pull it out, hit record. It's recording. It's now recording. I don't even need to use the receiver. It's there. It's working. It's recording. 8 gigs of storage on board. Ready to go. 32-bit float. Turn it off. Magnetic clip for the back, as well as a microphone clip, which also, I'll add, is shoe compatible. Really, really incredible audio. And I mean incredible. On the unit as well. So just to show you on this, I might make a quick review of this when I do it. You got the receiver. If I just pop it out of the charger, it'll kick in. So you can see it there. So you can see this one is on. If I pop that one out, it goes to dual. So you can see both are on. If I now hit record, you can now see it'll put a red box around that one to tell me it's recording. But this you can also plug into your camera, your smartphone, plugs into iPhone, Android, as well as normal cameras, because it does have 3.5mm and line out as well. But you can see there, it tells you what's going on the display. It's recording on the side there too. You can say stop. And this, honestly, this is a touchscreen. So you can even control it from the touchscreen as well. It is a phenomenal. Is that the DJI Mic 2? Yes, it is. A phenomenal piece of kit. Charging base. To plug it into your phone, you remove that piece off the bottom. Plug it in, drop it in, on charge, ready to go. How does it prefer near roads? It does have voice isolation if you want to turn it on as well. It's not the best, but it's okay. The great thing is with the onboard recording, 32-bit float, honestly, they have blown my mind. You can, and you can connect. So you can record directly on board. You can connect to your smartphone via Lightning or USB-C. You can connect via line out or microphone out, and they can be paired as Bluetooth. Honestly, they're just phenomenal. Now allowed to connect to 04. Yeah, but you could put that on your quad. if someone wanted audio, you could strip one of these down, right, and mount that onto your quad. That's a video, isn't it? I love that product. Right, next, we need to move on to Caddx. But before we do that, I need to talk about the Super Chat. We do accept Super Chats on this channel. I want to say a big thank you to GSFPV for the £5. That is incredible, my friend. Is it possible to run an ELRS module like Nomad without a radio, exclusively to receive telemetry to be mounted on an antenna tracker? You can program the modules to be telemetry radios. What you're asking is, you can program them to be telemetry radios to receive telemetry to be mounted as an antenna tracker. So what you want to use it is as basically passing out over the UART. I can't confirm this, but you will need to speak to the ExpressRS devs. But there's a UART serial output on them, so I don't see why you couldn't. I don't know how to. I can't confirm exactly. But there is a way of doing pretty much anything with ExpressLRS. Thank you for the super chat, though. If you want to hop onto my Discord, or I don't know how you would do that directly, but you can definitely set them up as telemetry radios. There are UARTs on the modules that you can use as well. I'm just not exactly sure what you can pass to the UART as standard. I don't see why you couldn't pass telemetry. I'm guessing you want to pass your ExpressRS telemetry. It won't receive just telemetry. Right, okay. So that isn't something that can be done as standard. I'm guessing, though, it could be implemented, or at least it could be hacked, or it depends what you want to do. ExpressRS is open source. RX can be used as telemetry only. So you could use another RX. Okay. Right code. Someone just said, 11 Mini is way cheaper and has got the same sensor as the 12 and 13 with the labs. I'm not saying it's junk. I'm saying it's not ideal. It's got a built-in battery, which I'm always going to have a gripe about, even on the DJIs. And everyone I've spoke to has told me it's junk. Question, someone just asked, Mads Tech, before we get on to Caddx, did you see iFlight's analog goggles? Yes, I've known about them since February last year. Over a year. I recorded a video about this and I never published it. These have been like the longest coming product that I've known about. I wonder if I could actually find when I recorded this. Let me find it. I tell you what it was. When iFlight last year... Was it last year? It was last year. I swear it was last year. Sent me the Chinese New Year stuff in March or April. They included a picture of the goggles. Now, let me just go into... Did I ever delete that video or did I keep it? Let me just find it. iFlight. I found it. Right, let me show you guys something. This is something I never published. So this was recorded. So this is when this was recorded. 13th of the 5th. So it was May 2024. Okay? It's this video here. And in this video, I show you what I was sent from iFlight. And I never published this. Oh, God, it's gone to the wrong screen. Come on, thank you. And in this catalogue, I'm going through Chimera 7 and 9, the Evoke F3, R5 Lab, 8. Notice here, the remote controller. So you've got the Commando 8. Notice down here. Commando 8 Pro. So I had the spec on these last year. They talk about the spec. And then we've got something new, which is iFlight goggles. Now, I know nothing about this at the point of me making this video, and I don't know when this is going to be shared with you, so I might have to stop it now until this is released. However, lightweight and comfortable, ultra clear enjoyment. iFlight's first FPV goggle coming soon. Ultra HD binocular 1080p HD display with refresh rate up to probably an Echo, but you get the idea. May last year, I found out about these, and I never published that video. iFlight, could you not hear? I just talked about the spec on them, 1080p. iFlight have released a set of 1080p FPV goggles with HDMI input. 60 frames a second DVR. We don't really know much more than that. I don't think anyone has reviewed them. Has anyone reviewed them? They don't even have them listed. Oh, they finally do have them listed. Here we go. Pre-order. Basically 1080p displays, 100 Hz. Built-in analog receiver. Compatible with VRX, AV and HDMI. We don't have a lot of the images. Literally, they're not showing you anything. Has anyone seen... They seem to have taken forever to come out. What we don't know is this. They do have HDMI input. Sorry, 30 frames a second DVR, not 60 frames a second. 30 frames a second DVR. I meant to say 30 and I said 60. We don't know what the HDMI input supports. Does it support 1080p 100 Hz? Don't assume, because fat sharks don't. Interesting. I would like to try them. There we go. That's all I can really say about them. Really, that's all there is to say. There's not a lot more than that to say. I think that pricing is challenging for a set of analog-only FPV goggles today. They're not alone in that. Orca are the same. Fat Shark are in the same. Yeah. These are the goggles I thought SkyZone would make. Yeah, what's the field of view on these? Does a 44-degree, good size field of view? There's a lot we don't know, though. Does the DVR record HDMI? Yes, no. Does the HDMI input support 1080p 100 Hz? They're the main things we don't know. And why is it only got a 30 frames a second DVR? And it says CVBS, which makes me wonder if it's analog only. If you compare that to the HD0 goggles, bearing in mind now the HD0 goggles supports recording on all inputs with the latest firmware, including HDMI. Yes, they took a long time to deliver it, but they did deliver it in the end. But compare the pricing to the HD0 goggles, I think that's a tough market. I do think that is a tough market. But they have released. So let's wait and see. Right, the next thing I want to talk about is, well, they haven't released. They're pre-release. So let's see. Caddx. Just stretching. Should have got my riot shield up for this one. Two things I want to talk about on Caddx is, number one, there does appear to be a bit of a growing discontent in the Caddx world from users. It's not really surprising. Some of it, I think, is absolutely fair. Some of it, I think, is expectations dictated by Caddx themselves, or at least set by Caddx themselves. And some of it is people expecting maybe a bit much. when you go on to the Caddx Discord group and the Facebook groups, there are a bunch of people starting to say, like, why is there no new firmware updates for my system? I want new features. What's happened with this new system? Because we don't know. We had a string of marketing. Then the incident happened. And then it's all gone quiet. They then announced that there's going to be a GT2, I should say, and a Moonlight 2, yet they haven't released yet. And there's obviously just a lot of people wondering what is going on. And a lot of this has been set by Caddx's, in what they've written. Especially around this new FPV system, and it is apparently new. We don't know anymore. There's no more leaks. It hasn't released. I genuinely know zero. No one will tell me anything about it anymore because I'm basically the Antichrist when it comes to Caddx. I am literally banned in any way, probably, as far as I can tell, in it. I will buy the products as they come out. I have ordered Caddx products already. I've ordered the new VTXs to talk about as well, the new things. I'll order the new stuff when it comes out. But it is interesting that the gloss is wearing off a little bit now. Now, when it comes to new features and stuff, I'm a bit mixed on this. Look, so if we look at what Caddx promised, there are absolutely broken promises. They have never fixed focus mode. Focus mode has never worked on the Avatar HD system. The system has bugs and quirks that aren't 100%, and it's never felt like it's delivered on the promise. However, it is a fully usable, fully working system that many people enjoy using every day. It has the widest selection of cameras and VTXs available today. It has night vision, low light, not night vision, but low light, pro camera. They don't have everything. Their DVR, the Moonlight is not remotely near up there with DJI. It's not even up there with 03, let alone 04. But they have a solution. Where people seem to be getting a bit upset is they want more, more firmware updates. I know one of their testers had posted to say new firmware is coming, and it isn't just to provide support for the Moonlight 2 and the GT2. I don't know what else that means. I don't know what else that is going to bring. I don't really think you're going to see focus mode fixed. I don't think the app will ever work properly. The Wi-Fi functionality never really worked. But it'll be interesting to see. What is color profiles for Moonlight, stuff like that. And it is good that they're going to release a Moonlight 2 and a GT2. The GT was a weird product. Mine is here, and it's a weird product. It has some issues, does the GT. But it has its purpose. Funny enough, the GT is there. Caddx do seem to be releasing a lot of analog-based products at the moment. We also never got the HDMI VTX. I think Caddx have been absolutely stupid not to release that HDMI VTX. Avatar HD with a HDMI input VTX and the VRX would be incredibly interesting to a lot of people. It would need to be able to drop 1080p across on the link. I actually wonder how bad it would look with the HDMI input. And what I mean by that is, if you remember, the complaints I had on the codec, they fixed by basically pulling a lot of the luminance out the image. I wonder how it would behave with a HDMI input that you have total control over. I still think they're dull to have not released the HDMI VTX, though there are a lot of people who would want that. Although that does then open up a different area of problems for them, because they're not selling cameras and VTXs then. To be honest, I would be happy even if they made it expensive. Will there be a new VTX from Caddx to compete with 04? I find it very hard to believe Caddx will ever get to 04. Can they get to 03? Probably not. Look, you have to remember DJI is a camera drone company. They have more experience in making flying cameras than anyone else on the planet. Caddx making a... just look at DJI's experience on what they're making. Look, just look at the products. They just ignore this crap. Just look, DJI make this stuff. You know, it's unlikely to ever get close. The Moonlight 2 is going to be their attempt. That's going to be their attempt to get there. That's the truth. So look, we're going to have to wait and see what the Moonlight 2 does. That's what we're just going to have to do. You know, I don't think it'll get to 04. I tell you this, if Caddx can get to 03 with the Moonlight 2, they've done well. And I mean, they've done very, very well. But here's the number one. They've got to stop using CCTV-based sensors. You know, all of Caddx's sensors are generally CCTV-based compared to DJI using smartphone filming-based sensors. Caddx would need to spend a lot of money to make it happen. Caddx are having to buy in video recording chipsets. Remember, DJI does it all in-house. So it's certainly not impossible. Could they make something similar? Yes, but it's gonna cost a lot of money. If you want to know how they can make something similar, it starts here. They need to go to Umbrella, right? They need to go to these guys and get whatever their latest video recording camera chipset is. I don't know what the latest is from Umbrella. Something like these new ones here. Here we go, look. So what have Umbrella got in their range? Oh, H32. Umbrella H32 is ideal for aftermarket dash cams. Not necessarily the right camera. Oh, here we go, H22. Targeting a new generation of connected drones, sports and VR cameras. 4K recording at 60 frames a second or equivalent, while streaming a second live mobile resolution over a Wi-Fi network for preview or sharing. H22 or the H2. That's what they need to integrate. Something like this. Umbrella have a long history of making high-end smartphone chips for... high-end camera chips. Umbrella used to make the chips that were in all of DJI's drones. DJI migrated from Umbrella. GoPro used to use Umbrella. GoPro early cameras were Umbrella. Some of your favorite GoPros are probably Umbrella chipsets. Umbrella was the standard. But this is going to cost money, and as Mike has just said, an obtainium to them. And that's the problem. If Caddx wanted to get near, you're talking that. You start there and you move forward. None of these Star chipsets or these others that they're using, I don't think are really going to get close. Everything they've been using so far is largely based around CCTV or image processing AI. You want the H2 or the H22. H2 would be a great start if they could do that. That would get them there. But they're a million miles off that. So look. But no, look, it is interesting. There's a bit of discontent. I think Caddx have to be careful. I am seeing, and JB mentioned this earlier, more and more people transitioning to DJI because the gloss is wearing off. Look, I have been incredibly critical of Caddx. With good reason. everything I've ever said is always with open and honest opinions. How I feel they need to improve, how I feel that they are not behaving in a way that is good or good for FPV. But we need Caddx, because the truth is, you wouldn't have the 04 Lite ear unit without them today. That's the truth. Now, unfortunately, the 04 Lite has its own issues, but you wouldn't have DJI take notice. DJI doesn't really stagnate, because if DJI stagnated, you'd never have all of these new camera drones. DJI push them. DJI compete with themselves in the camera drone market. The problem with the FPV market is they just don't seem to care. And they need Caddx there to keep them involved. Oh, what's going on over there? Oh, they're doing something. Let's go and try and compete. If they wanted to, they don't need anyone, because DJI is more than capable of competing with themselves. You know, who needs the Mavic 4 when the Mavic 3 was as good as it was? They don't need anyone else to do it. But they seem to, in FPV, need someone to poke them, to push them along. It's not that DJI can't, it's more that they just don't seem to want to push forward without a poke. Whereas in camera drones, every 12 months, brand new product, push forward, push forward, push forward, push forward, push forward. The truth is, I just don't think the market's big enough for them to care that much about. And that's the problem. But look, Caddx, we do have some new products around the corner. What I found very amusing was Caddx have released a bit of a weird video this week on Facebook. Look at this, right? 4 days ago, they released a video. Now look at the title. Before Moonlight 2, learn Moonlight 1 again. So they're even saying in their own video, Moonlight 2 is coming, because they're saying, before Moonlight 2, learn Moonlight 1. And this video is basically showing you how to install the Moonlight DVR only unit. Bit of a weird thing, though. Just weird. But Moonlight has been it's got a horrible design, the Moonlight. I hope they improve the design in the new one. The way you have to move the cables around inside is not great, especially the power cables. Caddx had a habit on Moonlights of soldering the power cables to the fan connectors and blowing them up on brand new. But yeah. So look, there are people who are unhappy, but there are people who still love the Caddx system. Right now, it seems that there is no news on the new system. I know zero. Apparently, GT2 Moonlight 2 is coming. Apparently, Ascent, whatever this new system is coming. That's all we know. We'll just have to wait and see. Okay, to catch up on the chat. Has the DJI 04 ear unit been out of stock? Yes, I discussed it earlier at the start. Then you have to integrate with the baseband. Yes. I bought into DJI last week and my ear unit broke. I sent it to them less than a week later. I got it back fixed and paid €0. Yeah, was it an 04 Lite, the standard, by any chance? I want to get a cheap Whoop. I only have a DJI Vision 2 goggles. What's the cheapest analog setup you would recommend? It's Happy model is where I would start looking. Mobular 7, Mobular 8. Something like that. Those loads of good ones. Beta FPV, and I tell you something, and I will say this. Emacs do not make a bad little craft. Emacs are always a company, right, that sort of get overlooked. Oh, wrong one. Emacs, they have a couple of really small little whoops, the Tiny Hawks. Oh, I didn't want the parts. Sorry. What have we got on here? You got Tiny Hawk Nano Scout. These are really good little quads. These are really good little quads, honestly. Emacs are a company that I always seem to sort of forget about. Tiny Hawk S. Real fun. Bomb-proof. Pretty good. Otherwise, you're talking a happy model. The only problem with Happy Model is their website. Their website is absolutely fucking horrific. Honestly, Happy Model, sort your website out. It is an absolute joke. For starters, that's wrong. Home, About Us, Team Pilots, New Rival Products. That needs to be here, right? Honestly, that needs to be here. And look at this. Products. Yes, they do have Express ELRS ones. 63 pages. Everything is mixed. Honestly, this website is horrific. There's no way to easily select. It's so messed up, it's insane. It's hard to even show people stuff because you can't find anything. You gotta search. Yeah, you gotta search. It's... Yeah, and you can't even buy anything. But Happy Model makes some really good little quads, but you might need to go and find them on a retailer. That's all I can suggest, because the website's a complete heap of junk. With every new DJI release, there's tension around which devices will have their compatibility blocked through firmware. DJI has never blocked compatibility. The problem is people are obsessed with something that has never happened. DJI have never taken away compatibility on a product. Yet everyone, every single time, sits here and goes, oh my God, will it still work? And there's no justification for it. It's like saying every time Apple release a firmware update, will Apple release iOS, will my car still work? DJI bricked your potato and Avatar. They didn't brick it intentionally. DJI have not removed functionality. I love Caddx use with my VRX and a 10.1-inch monitor. No, they haven't. They have not blocked functionality on... Name what they've blocked functionality on. DJI have never removed functionality on the goggles, the remote controllers, or thing. Bricking is not the same. They required me to buy a new smartphone. Your phone compatibility with the latest apps is nothing to do with DJI blocking. DJI did force people to use newer Android devices because Android changed. You didn't, because of the version of Android. They stepped forward in the version of Android. They didn't block your drone. They didn't stop your quad working. They didn't brick it. They wouldn't let me go back. No, they don't allow you, a lot of the time, they don't allow you to downgrade firmware. They didn't stop your drone working with a compatible smartphone. It was only a certain version of Android that was blocked as well. It was a very old one. It was like very old, if I recall. quad still works with the accessories. Bricking isn't uncommon. It doesn't happen often. Even DJI... Look, DJI's firmware failures. Yeah, but they didn't want you to spend more money with them. They didn't say you must buy a phone from us. What they made was the minimum specification for the current set of firmware and apps has this, and it would have been in the release notes before you updated. They didn't say you have to go and buy a new phone from us. What they changed was the minimum requirements for the smartphone. If you take the DJI FPV drone, you don't need the smartphone to fly. That's not forced. You don't need a smartphone to fly the DJI FPV drone, unless you're in the US where they introduced remote ID, which was a legal requirement. Yes, no, you don't. I don't. You do not have to use the phone. Only if you're flying with remote ID, which was a legal requirement. So if you're in the US, they introduced the remote ID firmware, which was a requirement. But you didn't have to upgrade. If I remember, it was actually in the DJI FPV drone. DJI FPV drone release notes. DJI have not bricked a product from working forever. It's only happened actually twice in all of DJI's history. DJI FPV release notes. Here we go. So, the last firmware update for the DJI FPV drone is added support for the aircraft to be used with DJI goggles and Tegra and goggles 2. Added support for remote ID requirements in the US. So this would have been the last one. DJI usually allow you to downgrade. It isn't always the case. Sometimes they remove it. DJI Fly app, Android, which would have been version 11. DJI Fly version 11. Where's the version 11? Android, where are we? So it requires, I don't know what version of Android you'd have been running. The current Fly app requires Android 7 or later. That is still old. That is still very old. DJI enforces obsolescence of its equipment. I'd argue that based on the fact that they're saying requires Android 7 or later. I'm sorry. That's not exactly forcing obsolescence. When did Android 7 release? (2016). Perception is everything. Again, perception is everything. Reality is often... Potato released in 2019. Yeah, 2019. Is that the current version of Fly? That's version 1.17. Actually, is that not the current version? Let's have a look. DJI apps. Let's have a look. DJI Fly. Yeah, no, that's the current version, look. Recommended models of phones. I'm not saying DJI is perfect. However, DJI have not forced any product not to work. They did introduce firmware for remote ID. That was required in the US. That comes with the pain that requires. Unfortunately, unfortunately, you can blame the government. That's an old one. Right. The next thing I want to talk about is FPV and AI, because this week there was a leak apparently of a new radio that was coming from Radio Master. Now, I want to be crystal clear. There is no new version of the GX radio, as far as I'm aware, coming from Radio Master. This leak is fake. I spoke to Radio Master about this, and they have confirmed it is fake. However, I wanted to talk about this because it's quite interesting. And this image was this. Now, this was roaming around Facebook. This was then posted on my Discord. It is a leak going, the Radio Master GX14 coming soon, 28th of the 8th, 2025. And it is looking like a screenshot of an Instagram post. Now, when I saw this, the first thing I thought was, that's weird. And I said this on my Discord. Something's off. A, Radio Master don't pre-release any of their products. And B, that is very early to be even talking about it, especially when I didn't even know about it as someone who does work with Radio Master. And I'm not saying I know everything, but it looked odd. What then stood out to me is I popped onto their Instagram, and this didn't exist at all. So if we hop onto the Radio Master Instagram, it was nowhere to be found. And then I started looking at these numbers down here for the like ratio and comments, and this started to set off alarm bells because, being frank, most Radio Master posts don't get this level of engagement. They get some good engagement, but they don't get this level of engagement. And when you go through, if you even look at some of the posts from months ago for the GX12, like that one's got 2,000 and 1,400, but that was a competition. But normal posts, so if we go down to one for the GX12, it doesn't have that level, especially in this short period of time. Down here somewhere is the GX12 ones. Where are they? It was a long way down. Here we go. Like this post only had 306 hearts and 8 comments. So it stood out to me for being off. We then spent a bit of time looking at it, and we actually realised that there was a lot off with it. It certainly looks like a new version with a nice big colour screen. But the truth is, if you start to dive into this image a little bit closely, you start to see some things are off. You look at the buttons and switches. It's missing trim 3. 1, 2, 4. This says SVS instead of SYS. Some of this wording isn't right down here as well. And we don't really know what the hell that is on the display. It definitely seems very, very weird. And again, it didn't add up. So we all come to the conclusion that, hold on a minute, missing 5 on the 6th position. Yeah, look, there's stuff off everywhere. Yeah, 5 is missing on the 6th position. Read the chat. What chat? Read emotes from idle up. I made this. Oh, so you were the actual person who made the image. Right, well, there we go. We knew it was fake. So anyway, we started to find out, and it was fake. So look, it is AI fakeness. What is interesting in this, though, is the kind of sort of noise and, you can argue, damage this can cause, especially when stuff like this spreads so quick. What did Idle Up say? I made this image using GPT and Cavera. It was a joke in a Facebook group. What I would say is, look, it's interesting, but when you are faking posts that look like they come from the manufacturer, I do think you have to be careful. Something like this can cause a lot of damage. It can cause people to stop buying a product when they think something else is coming. What I thought was quite fun was I actually put it my own. I took the GX12 post myself and put picture and put it into GPT. And what's quite funny is I was giving it prompts to try and make something similar. And I got a lot of the way there. I spent about 5 minutes. And I didn't publish this. I'm only showing this as a demo, a second. What is quite amusing is it did SVS as well, look. It reduced a button. And it put some weird writing on here. But this took me about 5 minutes of messing myself. But the truth is, this is fake. It is not real. Don't fall for it. What I thought was, though, interesting is we are now very much in a world that you can't believe anything you see. And that is the truth. And anything can be faked. Mine got quite close, not quite the same. I think it's interesting. I'd like to see a nice big colour one. I do wonder how we proceed in FPV with anything being fakeable now. Ian's on vacation. AI is hosting the video. It is dangerous. This kind of thing isn't great for manufacturers. If I was Radio Master, I would be very uncomfortable, especially with a post that looks like this. I think it's one thing creating an image like this, and I'm not having to go at the idle up. Look, people will do what they do. I think when you create it that it looks so legit, it does give manufacturers problems. It's a reality. Yeah, Chris, I was exactly the same. My first words on this was, something is off. What was your prompting to get it the same? I just said, can you make this with a bigger screen, a bigger colour screen? I think I just said, can you make this radio with a bigger colour screen with aircraft style image on board? And it took about 6 or 7 prompts. That's all I said. I don't think the prompting will still be there. I did it in GPT. Let me just come off this to log in a minute. I don't have paid GPT anymore. I did have. Here we go. I might have found my post. So, yeah, here we go. I'm not very good at this. Here we go. So I said, can you create me an Instagram-style post like the following image with new versions of the product, or product, because I spelt it wrong, called the GX14 in white with a larger colour screen. I uploaded that image first of all, which is an official Radio Master one, and then it produced that with a large appendage coming out of the middle, which is a bit weird. I then said, can you make the screen larger? And then it made it larger like that there. But to me, it was still off. And then I said, sure, new start. Can you create a new version of the radio in the following image that is white, has a larger colour screen, and is called the GX14? And then I uploaded the official Radio Master marketing image, which is there. And then it started with that. And then I said, can you make the screen bigger? It then did that, which made it look like the screen on the new DJI remote, and you couldn't use the gimbals. That's too big. Make it so it just touches the edge of the black circles, and it didn't listen to me. And then I said, go back to the first image you created, IBS, and make the screen 10% bigger than that, And then it did that again. And then I took the image it gave me, the first one, and I was doing this verbally. And then I said, on this image, make the screen 5% larger and have it showing technical flight information. And that was where I got to. So that's how I prompted it, with a lot of spelling errors. Bring the black border on the screen down below the Radio Master logo. I tried to get it to come down further, but it wouldn't listen. I gave up then, and that's the one I created. Really not hard. Incredible, really. However, can we believe anything anymore? And that's the problem. That is the problem. Typical GPT. Yeah. Yes, quite fun though. But the only thing I'll say, evil man. Just try not to make it too legit, because it can cause problems for manufacturers. You know. So anyway, there is no GX14. It's not happening. Radio Master, though, if you'd like to make it, I think a lot of people would be happy. Nice big colour screen, H7. Sorry, I actually meant, what cheap VRX setup do you recommend for flying a Whoop with DJI goggles version 2? Latency is not great on the V2 goggles on the analog input. It doesn't matter what adapter you use. The BDI adapter is probably the best. Use whatever receiving module you can get. Latency isn't great, though. I'll be honest, you might be better buying a cheap set of analog FPV goggles. EV800s, yeah. You might be better with some cheaper analog goggles. That's the problem. Okay, guys. Now's the time for questions. If you've got any questions, please do pop them on to me before we wrap up the stream. The last thing I was just going to talk about is AI and cameras. Caddx have started to integrate a lot more AI into their cameras, and I'm waiting for my low light cameras to come. But what I just thought was interesting is the chipsets that Caddx are using in these are made by a company called Enquiries. And this is quite interesting when you look at this. This is the benefit that AI can bring to low light cameras. This video just shows you the difference that AI enhancement is making to low light cameras. And this is what Caddx is using in these new analog units that they've released. You can see there the two images and the difference. It is incredible what AI is being used for, especially around image enhancement in live view imagery as well. It is really cool to see what is being done. This is the chipset that Caddx is using inside their new night cameras. Really cool stuff. And I do wonder how much we will start to see AI impact FPV, especially in real-time imagery. Very cool. Very cool indeed. I'd like to find a good DVR for analog to record with from a camera like Caddx. AI hallucinations in FPV. Yeah, it is amazing. It is really, really cool. This is what Caddx are using in their new gear. So this chipset is what's being used in the Gazer and the Farsight. They're using these AI chipsets in these, which is these here. I have both of these coming in. I have ordered the Gazer and the Farsight. I'm waiting for them to arrive. They're on a slow boat from China. I have seen the Axis flying thermal cameras. They're all out of stock. I am tempted to... How interested would people be in a proper thermal FPV video? And I'm talking, let's build a 7-inch with a proper dual thermal camera setup. How interested would that be? It would soon be hallucinating obstacles. Yeah. Do you know the bit I'm still surprised about? We haven't got AI gates. I'm still shocked that we haven't got AI gates and things like this. I always said one thing that DJI could do well was the virtual sort of gates and fly through stuff in their systems. I'm shocked that we haven't seen more of that. You don't need a track. You just have that and you go and fly the course in AI in real time at a local field. So you just go to your local field, as long as there's enough space, boom, it drops everything down and you will have that AI there in real time. Maybe we'll get there. Augmented reality is obviously the correct term. Would AI hallucinate, scramble, or ignore scramble? I don't know. It'd be interesting to see. But I'm waiting for these Caddx ones to come. I have a 10-inch thermal camera. A couple of days I'm making a video about it. I have the thermal and I'm talking about you're looking at whether we build a full thermal. So I'm talking the proper thermal unit, which is... They're not in stock. This is the problem. They're all out of stock now. You have to go onto AliExpress to search. You cannot get these from Axis anymore. Axis flying... You can't actually get them on Access, but these are available. So at the moment, the 256x192, that is way too low resolution, really. I'd love to build the 640x512, but it's serious money. Serious money to do the 640x512. Oh, you have the 640. Yeah, I'd like to try the 640. I'd like to see the difference between the two. Can you talk about the lens choices for wider field of view for the 256? You're not... you don't have a lot of options on them. What are they coming with spec-wise? I can't remember what they were. Are they 9mm? I thought they were 9. Yeah, 9.7mm. Foxia did a analog thermal. Yes, they did. 60 frames a second as well. Yeah, I know. These are proper toys. The only problem with these cameras is they appear to be absolutely horrific to control. They don't seem to have done any real work on being able to control these properly. But Access are basically buying these in. It would be very... Put it on a 5-inch. No, I would probably put it on the 7. Yeah, well, they're saying at the moment the field of view is 9.1mm on... 9.1, yes. So you've got 9.7, 9.7, 9.1. So you've got a slightly wider field of view. Wondering why those cameras are in analog? Yes, they could be made in digital. They could output digital. They just don't. There's no easy market for digital on them. They're basically outputting in analog, but you, again, you could do an analog to digital conversion. You would have to get a very small analog to digital conversion board. Can a buzzer be connected to a UART if the FC doesn't have a buzzer pad? Not usually, because it's a switched pad. But you should be able to get buzzer adapters. But these are all CVBS outputs. Yeah, you're going to have to... yeah, so I'm guessing you're using like an ESP32 or an Arduino or one of the others. I think there's ESP32 code roaming around, isn't there, for one of these? I think there's I think it's ESP32. I would like... What would be really great... I would love all three of these, and I tell you why. I'd love to show the difference between all three. I would love to show you, here's this one, here's that one, here's that one. The cost of doing that would be too much. That's the problem. But I would love to show, but there are really good videos on YouTube doing this. There are good videos showing you the difference. I found one before. Let me just find it, right? It's going to take some finding. 1 second. History. I found one which was showing a load of cameras, but the problem I've got is it might have been quite a while ago. I looked at this, so let me see if I can find it. It was a really good video comparing thermal cameras at different resolutions at range. I'm just scrolling back through the history, which goes back a long way. I'm trying to see if I can find the video I used. In it, don't you hate it? Can you search YouTube history? Where can I search my YouTube history? Search watch history. Didn't know that. Here we go. Found it. So this is a great video. So this shows you the different resolutions on cameras. It's not all the same cameras, but what you're seeing is the differences in the cameras at how they look at different distances and at different resolutions. So you're talking 384 by 288 there at 200 yards. 640 by 512 at 200. There's a big difference there. Look at that. 1280 by 1024. Oh, that's a bit of kit. So there's the 256 by 192. 28. I tell you something. 288 by 384 is a big step up. That's almost usable. There, you could fly with that. That is phenomenal. That looks great. If you look at the 256, right? So that's 256 by 192. You couldn't really use that in to fly. You would see what's around, but it's not offering any real usable imagery. That is a start. They are different field of views, which doesn't help. That is definitely better. There's a lot more detail in that. Ideally, you would want the same field of view to compare them all identically, but unfortunately, there's not a lot out there. Latency might be a problem. 1280 by 1024 is phenomenal. But again, at 400 yards, they are different field of views. .384 by 288, I think, is usable. I would like to actually test the 640 and the 388. That would be the two that would be incredibly interesting to compare. Because do you need to go to 640, or is there are different palettes on the Axis cameras, but I would like that would be very interesting. There isn't really a good onboard DVR. That's the problem. It would be very interesting, though, to test the 384x288 versus the 640x512. Putting those two side by side and going, can you fly with what is one versus the other? Unfortunately, it's just never a video that is ever going to pay back. If you look at the cost involved to do it, you are talking... So we are talking 555 quid for the 384 and 705. So you're talking 1,200 quid in cameras. That is never a video that will pay back. Unfortunately. There is no amount of views that will ever pay that back. Incredibly interesting bit of kit, though. Yes, you could sell them afterwards to the right person, I guess. Yeah. You could sell them afterwards, but they are not cheap. Right. That's it on tonight's stream. I want to say a big thank you to GSFPV for the one super chat. We've had one super chat tonight. Thank you for that. I really do appreciate it. Thank you all for spending some time with me. A couple of videos going live this week. The battery video that's tomorrow. Look after yourselves. Stay safe. I will be back same time, same place next week. And we will speak to you soon. Don't forget to check out Patreon, Buy Me a Coffee, and FPV Wiki as well. Bye.